that matters. Fox 40 News at 10 starts now.
Almost 2 weeks later, and the message remains the same. Justice for Stephon.
Say his name! Stephon Clark! Say his name! Stephon Clark!
Tonight, protesters hit the streets of downtown Sacramento, blocking traffic hours after the 22-year-old is laid to rest.
We're here for the family to get justice and to get answers, because the nation needs it.
Reverend Al Sharpton delivering a powerful eulogy at Clark's funeral.
An emotional day for the community, as family and friends promise he'll never be forgotten.
Stephon is going to live for generations to generations to generations to generations. The Clark family will never die.
Thanks for joining us tonight at 10. I'm Nikki Lorenzo.
And I'm Ty Steele. Today, protests stayed peaceful and the protesters stayed away from the Golden One Center. Police were on high alert, though, setting up extra security before tonight's Kings game.
That extra security measure is meant to make sure every fan with a ticket got in after issues at 2 out of the last 3 home games. Fox 40's Nicole Comstock joining us now live at Golden One Center with more. Nicole.
Yeah, Nikki, most fans were actually expecting to see protesters out here tonight, and police were certainly prepared for it. There were dozens of extra officers out here providing security this evening, and at the end of the night, they didn't really need them because the protesters never showed up, and everyone was able to get into the game without a problem. Fans made their way into the Golden One Center Thursday without skipping a beat.
We are here to watch the Sacramento Kings play.
To watch the Kings take on the Pacers, much different than anticipated based on the last couple of games here.
I wasn't able to get in.
When Marlon Garrett and hundreds of others were turned away because people protesting the police shooting of Stephon Clark blocked the entrances. Tonight, Sacramento police stood guard outside, and chain link fences were installed to allow only ticket holders inside.
But I'm glad to be able to get in tonight, so it's all good.
Kings head coach Dave Yeager said the team was also praying for a peaceful, positive night, hoping to see fans in their seats when they looked up from the court.
We all say that once the ball goes up, it's just, we're between the lines, but we're human.
Out of all the protesters marching downtown Thursday, only one showed up outside during game time.
Take care, have a good night, welcome to the game. Thank you guys so much.
Which meant that all the 100 or so police officers providing extra security were all on standby all evening with no disruptions to respond to.
We put a plan together that we felt really good about.
Vance Chandler says now Sacramento police are planning for Saturday's game.
We will look at what went well tonight and then come up with a strategic plan.
We also spotted Mayor Darrell Steinberg, who spoke privately with those officers, thanked them for working with the community and the Kings to ensure that everyone could come in safely.
Yeah, I feel safe.
John Holden says that while holding a sign that reads, "Does anyone else have concerns for our safety here?" He was also shut out of the game Tuesday, and he thinks the mayor handled the protest that day all wrong.
He's trying to be politically correct. I fully understand that. This is a very bad situation, but safety first.
So again, police are already working on their plan for Saturday's game. Reporting live tonight in Sacramento, Nicole Comstock, Fox 40 News.
Nicole, thanks so much. And tonight's game was preceded by another round of protests, which began at the Sacramento County District Attorney's Office. Their message is clear. They want justice for Stephon. Fox 40's Sincere Tonsel was in the middle of those protests today, which turned into a march. She joins us now live with an update. Sincere.
Well, Ty, police who shot Stephon Clark say they were pursuing him as a suspect in several car break-ins. They thought he had a gun. Turns out he was only armed with a cell phone. That's one of the details that has brought people out to these streets. They are calm now, but earlier, confrontation.
You may not like the way they breathe. You may not like the way they protest.
I'm not talking about the way you breathe.
Wait, you may not like the way they protest.
You are breaking laws by
blocking traffic.
Anything but a casual conversation on the streets of Sacramento.
No justice!
No peace!
No racist!
Police!
As a crowd out once again looking for justice look to keep hundreds from their normal routine by protesting what they say should be most abnormal. The police killing of unarmed black men in America. It is instead something, they say, that has become all too common. This crowd again taking to the streets on behalf of Stephon Clark, shot to death by Sacramento officers in his grandmother's backyard 11 days ago.
Stephon Clark!
2 hours after Clark's funeral, the call for justice on his behalf reflected in the office window of Sacramento's district attorney.
Justice! The DA needs to press charges. Howard Chan needs to fire them, those officers that killed him.
As demonstrations ramped up here for the third day in a row, a man whose own brother was buried today stepped out of his personal grief to bring flowers from that funeral to share with those mourning and marching for Clark.
So I had to come down and participate in showing the support for Stephon Clark.
The people united will never be divided.
Other versions of that support for Clark got right up in the face of police, keeping protesters out of a parking garage near I and 8th Streets. Some support was shown among those stuck at blocked intersections and was very much welcomed by the crowd. Not welcomed by some on these streets.
She's exploiting our pain.
The presence of an impartial media that's helped to share their movement with the country. They said our cameras were unwelcome if our crew wasn't chanting with them. But we stayed impartial, sharing their message.
We must love and support one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
Protesters say don't be surprised if you see them out on these streets again. Reporting live in Sacramento, Sincere Tonsel, Fox 40 News.
Sincere, thank you. And the protest this week started at the district attorney's office. They're asking Anne Marie Schubert to press charges against the officers involved in the death of Stephon Clark. We asked her what they consider when they make their decisions in a case like this. Take a listen.
There's two questions that are being asked. One, was a crime committed? And secondly, if a crime was committed, can we prove it beyond a reasonable doubt? It's like any other case that we have in our building that's received. We have to go by our ethical guidelines with those two questions. It's tragic. There's a loss of life that's involved. And there's grief, there's frustration, there's sometimes mistrust on the process.
The district attorney said that process could take months because Sac Police and the DA's office each do side-by-side investigations. The Sacramento County District Attorney's Office mandates a comprehensive review of each officer-involved shooting that leads to death. And we're learning tonight the attorneys for Stephon Clark's family will release the results of his autopsy tomorrow morning. That's at 10:45. The family hired Dr. Bennett Amalu to conduct an independent autopsy. He's the doctor known for discovering CTE and also served as the coroner for San Joaquin County. Sacramento County conducted its own autopsy last week.
Now the results come one day after Clark was laid to rest, and Fox 40's Joe Khalil was at the funeral.
We're here for the family to get justice and to get answers, because the nation needs it.
Reverend Al Sharpton using the funeral of Stephon Clark as a platform to make a national plea about police violence and abuses of power.
Many of us said no matter what, we'll be here. This is not a local issue, it's a national problem.
Clark's death made national headlines after he was shot and killed by officers in his grandmother's backyard. Sacramento police were responding to a call about somebody breaking into cars. The officers who shot Clark believed he had a weapon. It turned out to be his cell phone.
Just to have Reverend Sharpton here is just, now that you know that another powerful person with the knowledge of police killings has come out here. He know what happened. He know that this was not no accident.
As Clark's family mourned and put 22-year-old Stephon to rest, both Sharpton and the family's attorney, Benjamin Crump, continue to question the police tactics that led to the Clarks having to bury one of their own.
Why was the immediate thing to draw lethal force? Quick warning, shoot.
And they barely gave them little time to comply with whatever they said. I don't even know if it was a second before they started a hail of 20 bullets.
As the spotlight remains on Stephon Clark, calls for change in his name continue to reverberate from Sacramento nationwide. Joe Khalil, Fox 40 News.
And hundreds of people came to the funeral today, many of them taking the time out of their day to be there for Stephon Clark's family, even though they didn't know them.
This could be one of our children's in our future if we don't make the changes that we need to make today.
Cecile Thompson came to today's services with her young children because she said it was important for them to understand what has happened. We also spoke to Stephon Clark's cousin about the crowd and what it means to his family that everyone came out in support.
It's a lot of different people out here. It's people out here really supporting because this man was brutally murdered.
Many people we talked to say they hope the marches following Clark's death continue until positive change is brought about.
And as those protests continue, the Clark family lawyer is calling for peaceful demonstrations. Here's what he had to say earlier today.
People are going to have passionate emotions, and we ask that everybody remain nonviolent. We are celebrating Stephon Clark's life.
Stephon Clark's death has sparked nationwide protests. This is video from New York City where hundreds of people chanted Stephon Clark's name. They say they want the officers who pulled the trigger to be brought to justice.
And Stephon leaves behind 2 young sons. Working with the Clark Family Care has set up a crowdfunding campaign to help support those 2 kids. So far, they have raised over $21,000. And if you would like to help out, we have a link to that page on our website right now, fox40.com. Just search Stephon Clark there. You can also get the latest and most up-to-date information on this story.
Now to a developing story we're following out of Kentucky. A manhunt is underway for an armed police impersonator wanted for killing an off-duty officer. Authorities say 35-year-old James DeCursey pulled over the off-duty officer who was in his personal car. He then shot him. The suspect took off in a stolen pickup truck. The married police officer with 2 children was then taken to the hospital where he later died from his injuries. Police say the suspect is considered armed and dangerous and has a long criminal history. Right now, it's unclear if the officer was targeted or not. And closer to home, a Modesto police officer was involved in a crash this morning. Officers spotted this stolen truck in southwest Modesto and tried to stop it. A pursuit started and the driver crashed into a patrol car. The teens inside the truck ran away, and this man, 19-year-old Alberto Batista, was later caught and then booked into the Stanislaus County Jail. Also, a 15-year-old suspect has been arrested, and a 17-year-old suspect is still on the run. The sergeant involved in the crash suffered minor injuries. A man was shot and killed near the Dollar General store in Olivehurst, and tonight both the victim and the suspected shooter have now been identified by the Yuba County Sheriff's Office. Investigators believe 30-year-old Burham Ahmed and 24-year-old Sayer Stephen Daniels knew each other and got into an argument yesterday afternoon, which then led to that gunfire. They say Daniels shot Ahmed multiple times, killing him. Daniels then shot himself. He remains hospitalized in critical condition.
Now to Stockton, where a man suspected of killing 20-year-old Brandon Harrison had his day in court today. A judge set 21-year-old Rayshawn Johnson's bail at $1 million. Harrison's mother says she doesn't recognize Rayshawn and she doesn't think her son knew him. Harrison was attending a birthday party in Stockton when he was gunned down in October.
There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about Brandon, you know, when I wake up, during the day, before I go to bed.
His mom started a nonprofit in her son's honor dedicated to helping young people get on the right path. Johnson is expected back in court next week. He did not enter a plea. A series of late winter storms bolstering the Sierra snowpack, but was it enough? The results of today's snow survey next.
I am now believing and comfortable saying that this was a domestic terrorist.
Plus, those series of Austin bombings now deemed a domestic terror incident. What led the police department to this new conclusion?
And good news for a U.S. veteran who was deported from the country. He's now a U.S. citizen. A look at the road that got him there coming up next.